Hi everyone, it's Emily, and today I have a very special collaboration video to share with you all about childhood nostalgic games. Now, everyone has their unique story when it comes to experiencing video games for the first time. So today I've invited 10 great YouTubers, all with their own unique experiences, here to share about some of their favorite childhood games that they feel still hold up well today. So I hope you guys enjoy this one as we walk down memory lane.
Hi everyone, I'm Mandy. Thank you so much, Emily, for inviting me to take part in this video today. So my choice of a game from my childhood that I think has held up remarkably well is a game that also happens to be my favourite JRPG of all time, and that is none other than Grandia 2 for the PlayStation 2 and the Dreamcast. So Grandia 2 wasn't my first RPG, but it was the one that made me fall in love with the genre, and with gaming in general. It's always been my gold standard for RPGs. I used to wonder if my high praise for it was just a product of the fact that it was so influential to me as a kid, but I've replayed it numerous times throughout the years, and biases aside, I genuinely think it's one of the strongest turn-based RPGs out there. In my opinion, it's a game that excels in every category. It has characters that are extremely lovable and well-written, coupled with an incredible voice cast that really brings them to life. And the story is equally as impressive. Each of the characters' personal arcs are entwined very heavily in the overall narrative, in a way that makes everything you do and every story that is told along the way feel like it has a purpose. And that wider story it tells is a very memorable one. It tackles themes of religion, morality, and the power of people in a really timeless and well-done way. It also has fantastic pacing, a dynamic turn-based battle system that is one of the best, and a soundtrack that is too good for words. To be honest, I've always struggled to find an RPG that embodies that same level of all-round quality that I found in Grandia 2. It really is a special game, and one that has definitely withstood the test of time in terms of visuals, gameplay, and most importantly, story. If you're a fan of JRPGs and you haven't had a chance to play it yet, I really can't recommend it enough. And thankfully, with the HD remaster, it's more accessible than ever before.
Hi everybody, this is David from the channel David Vink, and thank you so much, Emily, for having me on. I grew up in the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and there was definitely a dearth of RPGs, so I had to really branch out, and in doing so, I was able to find quite a few hidden gems on that system as a kid, and one of those was great. It's the Guardian Legend. I remember my brother always liked space shooters like Graduous, Stinger, and Life Force. So he actually bought this one thinking that it was like more of that game, but it was kind of a bait and switch, in a good way. The gameplay alternates between space shooter levels and overworld exploration stages, where you beat enemies up for money, buy weapons and items, gain experience points and levels, as well as explore, gather keys, beat bosses, and just kind of do all the normal things that you would do in a JRPG. It's almost like two games in one, as you alternate between space shooter stages where you're flying from one planet to another, but then, whenever you land, you get to explore that planet on foot. It is such a childhood gem of mine, and it still holds up to this day, and I really cannot believe that there hasn't been a sequel, or even like a spiritual successor to it either.
Hey, it's Gabb. When it comes to my favorite childhood and nostalgic game, there is only one that immediately stood out above the rest. For me, it has to be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It originally released on the N64 2 years after I was born, and it wasn't until my teenage years when I would find it, emulate it, and unfortunately never beat it. Since Zelda was my recent obsession that year, for my birthday a good friend of mine gifted me an N64 and the cartridge. I would spend a lot of time sat in front of a huge CRT enjoying this game, and this time I actually made some decent progress, but I inevitably stopped around the Fire Temple. Unfortunately, I would again remain unable to beat this game. Despite taking years to, I would eventually come back and beat it later. However, this time it would be on the 3DS with the remake. There were so many times I remember sitting on my bed with my 3DS, headphones in, simply just enjoying everything this game had to offer, from the graphic upgrades, to the mobility of the 3DS, to the motion controls, to the story itself. There are so many memorable aspects like the characters, dungeons, and interactions you have along the way. But the thing that would always stand out for me would be the music. It's one thing that will always bring me back to it. Saria's song, Zelda's Lullaby, Song of Storms. Some of the musical arrangements are so iconic that they've surpassed time in the same way I think this game has. No matter what version, platform, time, day, or what year it is, when I pick up Ocarina of Time, I know the experience will be just as good as the first time I played it.
Hi guys, TKN here, and thank you to Orbology for giving me the chance to regale you about one of my favourite childhood games. Today I want to share with you a game from the little purple brick back in 2004, a title that I feel is still the best in the franchise, Pokemon Colosseum for the Nintendo GameCube. As with many titles outside of the main series, Colosseum was not developed by Game Freak, but instead by Genius Sonority, with this one being their first foray into the franchise. And if there was any doubt that they had no idea what they were doing or lacked experience, they erased all doubt within an hour of playing. In fact, a reason why I think I enjoyed this game so much could be tied to the history of the developers, as they previously had worked on the likes of the Dragon Quest series and Earthbound, so they had the JRPG nous to appeal to even a 12-year-old TKN. Colosseum doesn't take the classic approach from the mainline series where you choose a starter, collect badges and defeat the Elite Four. Rather, this one is a fully fledged adventure to overthrow an insidious plot that involves closing the hearts of so-called shadow Pokemon and making them fight against their will. To do that, we join Wes, who has still got to be the coolest looking Pokemon protagonist to this day. He's got the badass trench coat, goggles, used to be part of a criminal syndicate but then went rogue, steals what he wants, blows up the base for good measure, and then pieces out on his motorbike across a land that could only be described as Mad Max meets Nintendo. On top of that, his two partners are the best evolutions in the series, Espeon and Umbreon. And you will be using them, as Pokemon Colosseum is near on exclusively all double battles, a concept that was still fairly new during the third generation of the series. And though this design choice seems odd, it actually aids massively in the game's longevity, as double battles give so much more room for strategy, and I still think to this day it's one of the most difficult games in the franchise because of it. On top of that, Colosseum opened up a massive array of possibilities for the players who had the handheld third generation titles, those being Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald. It could also pair up with the first gen remakes of Fire Red and Leaf Green as well if you so wished. If you had them, and the trusty link cable, you could take the Pokemon you found in Colosseum and trade them over to your mainline game. And since many Pokemon in Colosseum were second gen, they were unobtainable outside of this method. To this day, I think this is one of the only legitimate ways to get yourself a Ho-Oh on a third gen title. I wish I could talk more about Colosseum, but I'm certain I've gone over the 2 minutes, so I'll end it there. But it's still my favourite game in the series and likely will stay that way for many years to come.
Hello everyone, my name is Fejiro from Feji here on YouTube, and I want to thank Emily for the awesome opportunity to be a part of this collaboration and video. So when I think of video games that have stood the test of time and that still hold up today, I definitely have to mention the Sly Cooper series. More specifically, Sly Cooper 2 and the Band of Thieves. In the world of Sly Cooper is a fictional version of the real world with anthropomorphic animals, motifs from film noir and comic books. It's a stealth-like platformer with amazing level design, puzzles, and great narrative. Its story centers on Sly Cooper, a raccoon who is the last in the long line of master thieves, who passes down expert techniques of thievery from generation to generation, using The Thievius Raccoonus, a book that contains all secrets and tricks of the Cooper family. Sly Cooper 2 The Band of Thieves is set 2 years after the events of the previous game. Sly Cooper and his partners in crime, Bentley and Murray, are pretty much following around the main mission to defeat the Claw Gang and steal the scattered pieces of Sly's arch enemy, Clockwork. Now, Sly Cooper 2 Band of Thieves to me is the best of the trilogy. And yes, I call it a trilogy even though I know that there is canonically 4 games, but I don't want to mention the 4th game. It doesn't exist. We don't know. We don't know her. But either way, Sly Cooper 2 is definitely a series that I love and hold dear to my heart. It was definitely the first game that really showed me what a good narrative can be in a video game, and that games can just be more than just like getting from X, Y, and Z, but with great character development, great plot, and just good world building. and great level design. I really thoroughly enjoyed Sly Cooper too, and that is definitely a game that still holds up the test of time.
Hey everyone, this is Taylor from The Gaming Shelf, and thanks again, Emily, for having me on your channel to talk about a game from my childhood that still holds up really well today. And I thought about this a lot. I was thinking maybe a JRPG because that's what I talk about, but one game I like to replay often that still holds up really well gameplay-wise is Mega Man 4. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't think of Mega Man and side-scrolling action games when they think of my channel, but I absolutely love Mega Man 4. And what holds up so well about it is just the pure good gameplay. This is the game where you could slide for the first time in Mega Man, you could charge up your buster to a bigger extent, and you had new rush mechanics to where you could ride on the balloon, or there was Rush Jet, Rush Marine, all these cool new ways to take advantage of Rush. And this is just my favorite collection of bosses. Maybe this is just nostalgia talking because this was a game we played in summer camp over and over and over again, and we're just really good at it. But I just know the formula of this game so well. It's a game that I replay once a year. I go through it. It's like brainless. I just know all the order of the bosses. I love using the different powers on all the different bosses, but then it also has a really incredible collection of music tracks, maybe some of the best in the whole series. I know people love Mega Man 2, and I'll give my props to Mega Man 2. It's really, really good. But levels like Skull Man, some of these are just incredible. There are quite a few games from my childhood that I could have put on this list, but for me, this is just one I go back to every single year. It's a yearly tradition. I love playing this game. It's just so much fun. And despite the graphics being a little bit retro, a little bit outdated, it counts where it matters, and that is the gameplay. So that's my game from my childhood that I think still holds up really well. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else has to say, and I hope to see you guys over on my channel, The Gaming Shelf.
Hi, my name is Ray, and my channel is Stylish Nerd. I've been a gamer all my life, and I've been collecting for over 15 years. My favorite childhood game that still stood the test of time is none other than Contra. Just hearing the name Contra takes me back to the good old days when we were all just kids, skipping homework and playing NES for hours or even days. Not to mention the Konami code was the game changer. I mean, who knew that entering simple code could unlock 30 lives? Another reason why I love Contra is the co-op mode. Not only did I get to bond with my brothers, but it also turned us into a well-oiled communication machine. We had to work together to beat the game, and that meant learning how to communicate effectively without getting into a fist fight. I remember the thrill of finally beating the level together, high-fiving each other, and feeling like we could take on the world. I guess you could say that Contra is the original team building exercise. Contra is the game that is responsible for my run and gun addiction and made me a lover of metal music. Contra is timeless classic that deserves place in any gamer's collection. So yeah, if you're looking to build some teamwork, communication skill, and have a good time with your siblings or your partners, don't waste your money on therapy. Contra is the way to go.
Hello everyone, my name is Rusty, or LOOIE here on YouTube, and I just want to take this opportunity to first thank Emily for allowing me to be part of this collaboration, talking about favorite childhood games that still hold up today. My pick, without a doubt, has to be Lord of the Rings: Return of the King on PlayStation 2.
Now, licensed games often have a bad reputation surrounding them, especially movie tie-in games, but The Return of the King was quite the exception. Releasing a month and a half before the film hit theaters, my mom surprised my 10-year-old self with a PS2 for Christmas, a copy of Return of the King, 2 controllers, so I could play co-op with my sister, and tickets to see the film a few days after Christmas. Now, what blew my mind as a kid is that not only did the game start out in epic fashion, as you lead Gandalf and the Rohirrim into Battle of Helm's Deep to conclude the Two Towers story, but after finishing that battle, you're introduced to this beautiful dwarven wall showing you that there are 3 distinct campaign story paths that you'll play through over the course of the game. On the left, you had the Wizarding path where you play levels with Gandalf, the King's path in the center where you play as Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and then maybe the less desirable, not as fun path on the far right, where you play as Frodo and Sam on the Hobbit's path. But each level has you hacking and slashing your way through plenty of goblins, orcs, and cave trolls, and you're racking up tons of XP that you can then allocate to each character at the end of a level to unlock new moves, upgrades to weapons. This was a legitimate full-blown action RPG, Lord of the Rings style. Now, Playing solo is fun, but where Return of the King truly shines is side-by-side co-op with a friend, or in my case, sibling, as my sister and I stayed up into the wee hours of the morning Christmas Day, nearly beating the game in one single session. Lord of the Rings Return of the King was not just a nice movie-to-game adaptation. It was one of the best action games in the PS2, and I still think it stands among the best Lord of the Rings games that have released after it, and it's certainly a favorite childhood game that's fun to play today.
What's up everyone? Alex here, and I'm here to talk about one of my favorite games when I was a kid, and admittedly I wasn't too young at the time, I was a teenager, but I think that still counts, and that game is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now, I own this game on every single platform it came out in, and I've always made it a point to replay this game at least once a year. The reason for this is that I still consider Symphony of the Night as one of the most beautiful 2D side-scrollers I've ever played. And the amount of imagination that it took to realize Dracula's castle right side up and upside down is just nothing short of breathtaking to me. The creepy music that permeates the different areas in the castle are some of my favorites in series history. And the types of secrets that you have, like incorporating fighting game motions to cast spells in the game, as well as the ability to unlock even more abilities by pairing items with a shield rod. As a kid, it felt like there was an endless amount of possibilities with this game. And compared to everything else that followed it, the richness of the sprite work, as well as the level design, is still something that I can look at many, many years later and say to myself, it's taken a very long time for 3D games to get to that level of detail, and thankfully, we're finally there. I could go on and on about how amazing the weapons and bosses and the familiars are. Little areas that hide a lot of secrets are just some of the many, many reasons why I absolutely love Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Hello, my name is Min, and I am from the channel Nintendo Gaming here on YouTube. I mostly cover cozy games, farming sims, and my 3DS collection. Speaking of farming sims, when Emily asked me to be a part of this video, I knew exactly what game I was going to choose. The childhood game that still stands for me is Harvest Moon, More Friends of Mineral Town, or Friends of Mineral Town. But More Friends of Mineral Town is the girl version, so that's the one I grew up playing. Now, this game has been remade for the Switch, but I want to argue that the original still stands today. It's still amazing. I've even played it this year, and it's probably my most played, not just childhood game, but my most played game probably still to this day. It's an absolutely incredible game. Now, the remake is great too, but there's something about the pixel art of More Friends of Mineral Town or Friends of Mineral Town that still sticks today. So many games have been trying to make pixel farm games. We've seen Stardew Valley, we've seen Roots of Pacha, and we've seen Sunhaven coming up with the pixel art style for a farming sim. So I feel like the art style still stands, but also the gameplay. Each of the townsfolk has a deep, intimate story. You can get married, you can have a baby, you can take care of your animals. Your animals die if you don't take care of them, which is something that hasn't been carried over in the newer Harvest Moon and Story of Season games. But I always appreciated that because as a child, I really learned like, oh, I need to take care of my animals. The game is filled with tons to do and it leaves the gameplay up to you. If you just want to farm, you can do that. You want to meet the people in town and get married, you can do that. There are so many lessons to be learned through this game, mysteries to uncover, crops to grow, townsfolk to meet, festivals to participate in, ore to mine, meals to cook, money to make, animals to tend, and much, much more. So if you haven't, I would totally suggest checking out Harvest Moon, Friends of Mineral Town, the original, but that is my favorite childhood game that I feel still stands to this day.
So I hope you enjoyed hearing everyone's nostalgic stories. Now for my pick, if you've been following my channel for a while, you probably know what game I'm going to bring up, and that is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on the GBA. Now, I didn't grow up with any of the Nintendo home console systems, so my first exposure to Zelda was on the Game Boy systems. And I distinctly remember as a 12-year-old just being fully engrossed in Link to the Past. And it totally just transformed how I thought games were on the handheld. I just remember being dropped into the world of Hyrule and not given much of a sense of direction, and kind of figuring out on my own where to go and how to beat all the dungeons and finding the different items to solve the puzzles. And I think this is one of the first semi-non-linear experiences I ever had in video games, in that you could really just go out and explore wherever you wanted, kind of figure out how to solve all the different dungeons in sort of any order you wanted for the most part. But the thing that really amazed me was how to solve puzzles going back and forth between the light Hyrule and the dark Hyrule. I kind of loved how a lot of the Zelda games that I went on to play in later years kind of played around with the different dimensionalities of different worlds, such as going back to the Oracle games, and also with now Tears of the Kingdom, you have all the different sky islands, the underground, as well as the main Hyrule. And then of course with its sequel, A Link Between Worlds. So despite this game clearly having a great impact on not only my gaming history, but also the Zelda franchise in general, I think this is still a great game you could go back to and still feel that same sense of wonder of just exploring light and dark Hyrule, and maybe figuring out what order to do the dungeons in this run. I think both new and older players can look back on this game and really appreciate just the sense of adventure that this game inspired. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing all about our nostalgic picks that we still feel hold up to the test of time. So I want to give a big thank you to everyone who participated and made this collaboration possible. I'll have a link to all their channels down below in the description and also the pinned comment. So if for whatever reason you haven't been following their channels, they'll be listed down below. And that's all from me. And until my next video, bye guys.